Hey, good morning, fellow Texans. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. Iran continues to fire missiles, but ships are getting through the Straits of Hormuz. That's where we're starting on today's show. And that's a big deal. Now, a lot of the countries that Trump has reached out to say, hey, can you help us secure the Straits of Hormuz? Some of them have said no, like Germany and Australia, but they don't get their oil from the Straits of Hormuz. The people that are really relying on that oil that goes through that little narrow passage there, we're talking about India, China, Japan, South Korea, those fellas. And India said, well, we can't wait. We got 1 billion people over here, and some of them need some oil in some form or fashion. And so the report I saw this morning on Fox News, seriously, about 6 minutes ago, is that they got 2 tankers through the Straits of Hormuz, which progress is being made. A lot of people are concerned about the troops that are being sent into the arena. I think most people don't want boots on the ground, but I don't want to speak for you. I know I don't want boots on the ground. Democrats are going to just oppose anything he does, so you can't even worry about what they say. But I have noticed quite a few people on Team Red would tolerate some level of boots on the ground. And so the question becomes, are we becoming the world police? We knocked over Venezuela. We're intervening in the Israel, Gaza, and the Ukraine, Russia. Now we're doing our thing in Iran. Cuba might be next. That's a lot going on for a non-interventionist.
If the United States is working to secure the Strait of Hormuz for the benefit of other countries like China, and our allies aren't yet stepping up to your standard, is the United States getting back to being the world's policeman?
Look, the United States should not be very much involved. They can on a certain basis. They've been doing it for a long time. But I've always said, if you look back years ago, I said, why aren't we being reimbursed? These are the richest countries in the world. Why aren't we being reimbursed for maintaining the Hormuz Strait? And why aren't we being reimbursed for that? I've said that for years. You can go back. They reported on it yesterday. I've been saying a lot of things about the Straits. Number one, I said it's the one advantage they have, but that's a suicidal advantage because they kill themselves more than they kill the rest of the world. And there are things you can do with time. There are other things you can do. But I think we're going to have the situation straightened out pretty quickly. And I think we're going to have some good help. And I think we're going to be disappointed in some nations too.
And mind you, that question came from the right. That was Phil Wegman from Real Clear Politics. We have Real Clear Politics on the show on a semi-regular basis here. So Phil Wegman wasn't asking as a Democrat trying to cut him off at the knees. He was asking him from the classic conservative non-interventionist standpoint, where he even campaigned against being the world police. Now, bombing people from a distance is a lot different than actually putting troops on the ground and occupying it. And I think that's where a lot of people are sort of drawing the line. Is it really interventionist? Is it really a forever war if we don't even have any troops in Venezuela? That military action is over. And I have a feeling that if a positive result pops up, that this could be over pretty soon too. However, there are a lot of different exit theories for the Iran scenario.
One of your advisors, David Sachs, said the other week that the U.S. should, quote, declare victory and get out of the Iran war. He also warned that if the conflict escalates, Israel may contemplate the use of a nuclear weapon. Has he shared that assessment with you?
No, yes. Israel wouldn't do that. Israel would never do that. And there's a theory. You've pounded them to hell, and you could just leave now, and it'll take 10 years for them to build back not nearly what they have right now. And I guess that's another theory. But we want to have it ended so that another president doesn't have. Look, for 47 years, no president was willing to do what I'm doing, and they should have done it a long time ago. It would have been a lot easier. There's no president that wanted to do it. And yet every president knew. I've spoken to a certain president, who I like, actually, a past president, former president. He said, I wish I did it. I wish I did. But they didn't do it. I'm doing it. Yeah.
Which president do you think that was? Probably Bush, right? Maybe Obama, probably Bush. Joe Biden just said he wanted some mashed potatoes. The beautiful irony, though, of the new information that 2 Indian oil tankers successfully went through the Straits of Hormuz, no problem, is that they were doing this while yesterday, at the same time, they're safely passing through the Straits of Hormuz. The View has, you'll hear Sonny Hostin, and sitting in for Alyssa Ferris' seat is Carly Fiorina, one of the rhinos, just the old school, like a female John McCain. And they were over here musing about Trump has no plan for the Straits of Hormuz. Wow, this is happening at the same time as the Indian oil tankers are just safely skating through.
I do think you made a good point at the break. We were talking at the break, and I said, I can't believe that the president didn't know that Iran's response to this would be to close the Strait of Hormuz and not allow tankers in, and now our energy prices are going off the rails, $8 a gas.
Say? Very predictable.
And your response was
he was advised, I think, by Dan Kane. But anyone who knows
head
history,
of the Joint Chief of Staffs.
Absolutely. Anyone who knows history would know, of course, they're going to close the Straits of Hormuz. You can agree with his decision that something had to be done about Iran, but disagree with the decision-making process. It did not consider all the risks and the contingencies, clearly. It overrode advice, clearly. It did not build support and understanding. So now our allies are wondering whether they're going to help us clear the Straits of Hormuz.
It didn't seem to have an exit plan.
But Iran was going to engage in asymmetric warfare. This is existential to them.
Right.
And so they will use every weapon they have, all predictable.
So your standard Team Blue View panelist with a never Trumper rhino. Good call, guys. While they're saying that, Indian tankers, giant Indian oil tankers going through completely unscathed. So you're all updated on Iran. Coming up next, did you know Cuba had a big blackout last night and the electricity is out over the entire island? Cuba may fall next. You'll hear about it on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Iran's falling now. Looks like Cuba might be next. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. And this is all hinging around oil. The reason Venezuela is such a big deal, oil. The reason Iran is such a big deal, oil. The reason the Straits of Hormuz such a big deal, oil. And maybe the reason why Cuba's fallen into a blackout right now, oil. My next guest, Matt Cody. He's an oil field worker, president and founder of Oil and Gas Workers Association. Welcome, Matt Cody. And oil seems to be, it's always an most important commodity on the planet, but it seems to be hinging all of our foreign policy news today. Easily. So let's talk about you're in the oil world. What does that mean to you that India got 2 tankers through the Straits of Hormuz? How do we complete the mission? Is the price of oil going up? Is it good for us here in Texas more than it is bad as long as it stays below a certain level? Yeah, I did 340 yesterday. No, I hear you. We're talking with Matt Cody from the Oil and Gas Workers Association. Trump just announced that he's going to release 172 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Oil Reserve. Am I saying that correctly? Is that going to make much of an impact on us, Matt? So you think in 6 months it's going to be back down, maybe 50 cents or a buck? All right, Matt, Cody, how do we find more of your work online? Thank you, sir. Matt Cody, Oil and Gas Workers Association. Coming up next, the lights went out in Cuba yesterday and they haven't come back on. The entire island is without power. How long can that last? 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey, I think Cuba's falling right now. And I don't mean falling in love. I mean falling, collapsing right in front of your face. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. And I say that because the power went out across the entire island. You know what a dire emergency that is? It's not like there was a storm and the power went out and the crews are working on it and it's going to come back on. Now, this was something that was predicted by a lot of people the second Venezuela fell. They're like, just give it a few months. Cuba's going to run out of gas and they're going to fall too. And I think we're in the process of seeing Cuba in a collapse that they're probably not going to come back from. This is the NBC affiliate in Miami, Channel 6.
President Trump making remarks this afternoon regarding Cuba after being asked by a reporter, what will taking over Cuba look like? More like Iran or Venezuela? Now, this comes as the island nation's power grid completely collapsed today, leaving the country without electricity. And about 11 million people on the island have no power, leaving them little to no access to basic services like water, food, and medical care.
Yeah, and the crisis is sparking protests throughout that country. NBC6's Kim Nguyen is live in our newsroom with the latest and with how local leaders are reacting. Kim.
Yeah, that's right. And the massive power outage is the latest crisis to hit the island as conditions keep getting worse. The frustration from people on the island has started to boil over into the streets.
This is how things look on the island of Cuba right now. No lights, no power, and millions of people left in the dark. On Monday, the country's entire electrical grid collapsed.
The Cuban government announced that the entire island is going to be in a blackout.
It's the latest crisis to hit the struggling nation, which hasn't received a drop of oil in about 3 months due to a U.S. blockade. No gas has led to empty highways. No power has led to women delivering babies in dark hospitals. Frustration sparking protest on the island for the past 2 weeks. In Morón, demonstrators attacked and burned a Cuban Communist Party office.
You know, we're seeing more and more of these demonstrations spring up, the Cuban people being bolder and bolder.
On Monday, Congressman Carlos Jimenez spoke briefly about conditions there.
They're fed up. They're fed up with not having any food, without any medicine. And when you push at people so far, they'll start to shove back.
While speaking with reporters at the White House, President Trump said this when asked about what the next steps for Cuba will be.
I can tell you that they're talking to us. It's a failed nation. They have no money, they have no oil, they have no nothing.
And on Friday, the leader of Cuba confirmed that the country is in talks with the U.S. He said that they are in the initial phase of those talks. For now, we are in the newsroom. Kim Nguyen, NBC6 News.
Oh, it sounds like Cuba's going down. Sounds like Cuba's just ripe for the picking. Is that going to be our 51st state? I was kind of hoping it would be Greenland. I'll take Cuba. Cuba can be the 51st state. Just learn English. That would help. We'll take up Puerto Rico, and then we'll do Greenland. But, it seems even more interesting when you go back and you look what Trump was asked about when he was sitting at the Oval Office talking about his anti-fraud task force. He had another comment on Cuba that they didn't play there, where he talks about, I could just take Cuba if I wanted.
I do believe I'll be having the honor of taking Cuba. That'd be good. That's a big honor.
Taking Cuba.
Taking Cuba in some form, yeah. Taking Cuba. I mean, whether I free it, take it, I think I could do anything I want with it.
And right now, he probably could. We've got a blockade going there. We pretty much own them as it is. The power's out. And I got to tell you, I know we think we're a nice, civilized, first world country here. But if the power went out and we all had the impression that it's not coming back on for a long time, I think it would be about 3 days before every major American city turned into a battle scene from Braveheart. Like, not only would we have troubles and not get along that great, this is what it would look like in every major American city. Now, out in Bucktussle, if the power went out, it would take us a few days to even recognize it. Then we think, Dad didn't pay the bill again. We probably wouldn't be nearly as bad. We have a lot more space out there. We have, there's cows down the road. I can just go eat one of them. It's not going to be that big of a deal. So, yeah, Cuba has the power out, and it sounds like they are falling. And, we got some breaking news. Dems vote unanimously against DHS funding. So that shutdown is going to continue for a while. How long do you think we would last if our power was out? 800-288-9227. Or you can send me an email, James at WBAP.com. But I think Cuba is done for. We'll continue with that next on the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, the shutdown is going to continue. Breaking news here. We just got word Speaker Mike Johnson is now taking questions on Capitol Hill because the supplemental bill that was not going to be the entire budget resolution, but at least fund DHS. It just got voted down in the House of Representatives. All the Democrats voted against it. And this is Speaker of the House Mike Johnson about 4 minutes ago.
Thank you, Leader Scalise. I would say good morning and happy St. Patrick's Day, but it's not a happy day for so many millions of Americans. It's really a difficult one. We're on day 31 since the Democrats decided to shut the government down, the partial shutdown, this time of Homeland Security. This is now the third longest shutdown in American history. They like making history on the other side, the wrong kind. They had the longest shutdown in history last fall, as we all know, and now they've got the third. Today is a direct result of Democrats taking the Department of Homeland Security hostage in order to protect criminal, illegal aliens. That's exactly what it is. Here's some of the stats. Roughly 120,000 DHS employees, including 50,000 TSA agents, are going without pay for yet another week. FEMA's ability to respond to natural disasters is increasingly imperiled. We had some big weather events, as you might have noticed, in the last 24 hours. Our agency of government that is responsible for assisting with that is being hampered. American airports obviously are reaching a breaking point, so severe that airlines are pleading with Democrats to please fund the Department of Homeland Security. It's fallen on deaf ears. 4 separate times, Republicans have voted to fully fund DHS since this chaos ensued, 4 times. And on each of those times, Democrats voted almost unanimously to block the funding.
All right, hang on a second. Mike Johnson, just a second. You know, one of the fundamental problems we have with this, the fact that TSA workers are going without paychecks right now because the Democrats and Republicans can't get along in D.C., the fundamental problem with that is the TSA should be privatized. This is only a problem because we federalized our airport security. If not, TSA would be funded as normal right now. Whether or not the Democrats get along with the Republicans in D.C. wouldn't matter whether or not you had security getting their paychecks in the airport. Is this really a superior system? It was privatized up until 9/11. Then we invented the TSA. Is this better? Does this make you safer? How many terrorists has the TSA caught? You don't have to Google it. It's easy to remember. 0. So what are we doing? You want to not go through this every time there's government shutdown? Privatize all the stuff they're talking about. Oh, jeepers, they're having to go without a paycheck. Well, that wouldn't be the case if the airports and airlines were paying for their own security, just like they did for all of human history up until 9/11. Just going to interject that real quick. We go back to Mike Johnson.
Instead of doing what's right and putting an end to this charade, Democrats insist on tearing the bill apart piece by piece. Their latest proposal would only partially fund DHS while stripping funding for ICE and Customs and Border Patrol. As Leader Scalise just reminded you, the discharge petition is really a petition to defund the police. Think of it. The law enforcement agencies that are the part of the Department of Homeland Security are what they are targeting.
Well, that's because you're taking all their voters away, Mike. That's the problem. Here's what they really want. Hakeem Jeffries said it on MSNBC. What this is all about, what the Democrats are really shutting down the government over. It's not the funding levels. It's not like there's any big cuts. It's not like we're getting the Doge cuts. Everything's going to be status quo, except for a couple little tweaks here. And you tell me if this sounds suspicious to you. Hakeem Jeffries saying no. One of the sticking points is we want no ICE at polling sites.
We are in a DHS shutdown right now because Republicans have refused to agree to the type of bold, transformative, meaningful, and dramatic reforms we are demanding in order for the Department of Homeland Security funding bill to move forward. And I won't go through all of the demands, much of which we've talked about repeatedly in the public, but one of those demands is keep ICE out of sensitive locations. And we've defined that as schools, houses of worship, hospitals, and polling sites. We want an explicit prohibition that ICE can go nowhere near any polling sites in the United States of America. It's one of our demands. We're not going to bend on it.
What are illegal immigrants doing at polling sites? You know, if illegal immigrants aren't voting, why do you care if ICE is at polling sites? Isn't that just the first question that pops in your head? I can read your mind all the way from here in our studios at the American Airlines Center. That's what you're thinking. Why would you not, unless you were planning on illegal immigrants being at polling sites, why would you care if ICE was there? So that's what this is all about. We're taking away their voters, and then we're going to stop them if they go to the polling sites. And I love this idea that we're just calling for ICE where they can't be in any sensitive areas. What does sensitive even mean? What a subjective, vague term that is. And then you can just deem something sensitive. And now if you're an illegal immigrant, you can escape law enforcement. Just ollie oxen free. I'm in a church, or I'm in a school, or I'm in a hospital. Really? I like how, hey, if they're in a school, public school, you can't stop them. Come on. We can't give the taxpayers a break there. No, they've got to pay for their health care. We won't let you go pick them up in hospitals. Or if they go to court, we got to pay for that. If they go to school, we got to pay for that. Isn't this just too many coincidences for it to not just be completely obvious that these people are doing something untoward when it comes to elections? You can't tell me that's not suspicious. You can't tell me that's just a coincidence over and over and over. Whatever's going on. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Maybe I'm being short-sighted. Maybe there is a better explanation on why I shouldn't be allowed at polling locations. But is there any other reason that's legit? Is there any other reason other than illegal immigrants are going to go vote and they don't want them to get caught? Because, hey, not only do we lose the illegal immigrant, we lose the vote too. 800-288-9227. How obvious does it have to be that they're pro-cheating? Let me see. The same party that doesn't want voter ID, that don't want to clean up the registration rolls, that demands mail-in ballots and absentee ballots and all kinds of really loose ballot handling rules. You also don't want any sort of enforcement of our immigration laws at polling places. That cannot be above board. All right, your spring break headquarters is Moody Gardens on Galveston Island. Take on the 5-story ropes course, the zip line, championship golf, and they got a newly renovated hotel just in time for the season. Head to moodygardens.org for more information, or you can have a chance to win tickets from us. Text the word gardens to 800-288-9227. Gardens to 800-288-9227. You know what I'm talking about? The Moody Gardens. We're all Texans. We've gone to Galveston. When you go over the causeway, the bridge there, and you first get to the island and you look off to the side and there's those pyramids there, that's what we're talking about. Moody Gardens on Galveston Island. Text the word gardens, Gardens, to 800-288-9227. Maybe you can win some tickets from us for a hotel stay and a round of golf. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, the government shutdown compromise just failed. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. I was listening to more of the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, press conference. There was a supplemental bill that would just fund DHS, which means the TSA and a couple other things that are kind of hampering life in America right now. And the Democrats voted all against it. And for the Republicans, for them, this is all about the SAVE Act. For the Democrats, they say this is all about, number one, stopping the SAVE Act, but also, number two, stripping funding from ICE. They have some changes that they want, and they also don't want ICE to wear masks. They don't want ICE to be in polling places on Election Day, which is hella suspicious. But this line of attack here, Speaker Johnson finishes his prepared remarks, which at the beginning there was some nice information, and then it just fell into Democrats are bad, everybody hates Democrats, and they're doing terrible in the polls. Yeah, we got it, but that's no substance for my good radio show here. But then when it gets to the questions, first question is, when it comes to the SAVE Act, can you point to one time where...
Well, that's not a green tie. Never mind. Over here. Go over here. Come on. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so the president has said that the Save America Act is his number one priority.
Yeah.
When making the argument to Democrats to vote yes for this, because it will require Democrat votes to pass, can you give for me one example of fraud conducted in a previous election that the Save America Act would do?
Look, we're not going to litigate all that. I can tell you what I'll tell Democrats. You should listen to the American people. Ostensibly, we're supposed to come here and represent the interests of the American people. This is a 90-10 issue in public opinion polling, and Democrats agree that you should be a citizen and have a photo ID to vote at a tune of about 70%. So there's no argument that you shouldn't do this. If they want free and fair elections, if they don't think fraud should be a problem, then they should vote to enforce federal law.
See, I think I got a better answer than that. Damn it, why aren't I the Speaker of the House? Well, can you give me one example of voter fraud that would have been helped by the SAVE Act? Dude, I give you a ton. I made a whole montage of it just last week. It's the voter fraud montage from the James Show.
Well, Joel D. Candace, according to federal prosecutors, 50-year-old Mahadi Saka was ordered deported from the United States in 2000, but stayed in the country and found a way to register to vote and vote in the 2024 elections.
And new on 7, a woman is accused of illegally voting in the Ruidoso election.
The Kansas Attorney General filing election charges against the mayor of a Kansas community that is in the town of Coldwater.
Attorney General Chris Kobach says that Ceballos is not a U.S. citizen. Ceballos accused of voting in the 2022 general election, the 2023 election, and the 2024 primary.
First tonight, voter fraud allegations rocking a small town.
All right, we don't have to listen to all this, but it goes for 2.5 minutes. Needless to say, there's plenty of examples of voter fraud that happens. And I could also throw it back of, can you give me one example of voter fraud the SAVE Act would address? Can you give me one example of a school bomb threat actually producing a bomb? Yet we still close school over that. And it makes the news. How about news? Tell me if there's actually a bomb. It's not news if there's not a bomb at a bomb threat. That's the most normal thing in the world. You're scaring people for nothing. You're leaving them with the false impression that there's danger where there has never been danger. Can you give me one example of someone who's done a mass shooting and they got their gun through the gun show loophole? You know how that comes up when the gun control crowd does? We need to close the gun show loophole. Has anyone been murdered from a gun that was bought at a gun show loophole? That seems like the craziest one. And I can come up with 100 examples. So it's like, when's the last time you saw a bike in this bike lane over here on Houston Street? How often does that? Can you give me one example? Can you give me one example of the time you took a bicycle to work, but you want everyone else to take a bicycle to work? Can you give me one example? I hate that stuff. All right, let's go to the phones here. This is Lawrence in Fort Worth. You're on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey, Lawrence.
Good morning. You know what? When you listen to social media, when you listen to the WBAP, everybody is on the same page. The question that I pose to the WBAP audience is this. If you listen to social media and you listen to black people, how we rail against what Hakeem Jeffries is doing and the Democrats, when you listen to most radio stations, If the whole doggone country is on the same doggone page, why ain't the Republicans showing some backbone and coming to us and let us talk about Hakeem Jeffries? You see, when the Republicans talk about Hakeem Jeffries, he race bait. When you let black people talk about Hakeem Jeffries, it's speaking truth to power. My question is, if the Republicans are serious, then you got to give a platform to the American people and let us talk to the Congressional Black Caucus. Let us talk to the Democrats, because the whole doggone country knows that they're full of crap.
All right, hang on, Lawrence. Let me interrupt the monologue here. Let's have a discussion. Why do you think that the 85% of the country wants the SAVE Act passed, but it's still not passed in the Senate?
The question is good, and the answer is simply this. We got rhinos and we got corrupt Democrats controlling the narrative. The whole country agrees with the SAVE Act, but you got rhinos and you got corrupt Democrats in bed with each other, so they screwing the American people. It's real simple. It's real simple. It don't take a rocket scientist. I'm an independent. I think the majority of America should be independent, because the Republicans are selling out the masses, the Democrats selling out the masses. So the question is, we got to change them and get rid of all of them, just like union politics, UAW politics. UAW politics reflect national politics. The rank and file knows what's right and wrong, but we got the hierarchy in the UAW selling us out. And the point is this: if we keep letting them control the narrative, they're going to get away with what they're doing. I'm wondering why the Republicans won't go to the man and woman in the street, especially black people. Let us call Hakeem Jeffries out. What, he going to call us racist if black people call him out?
Lawrence, one more thing.
No.
You're in Fort Worth. I'm doing a live broadcast in Fort Worth on Thursday. You coming out?
You know what, my brother? I'm going to do it. I've heard you talk about being up in Fort Worth. I'm going to come out. Because
all right.
You know what? The bottom line of it is, I keep telling people in the UAW politics and in national politics, right is right and wrong is wrong, and color ain't got nothing to do with it. But the Democrats keep coming up with this race baiting. And I'm telling you, the man and woman in the street who work for a living, they ain't fascinated with color and race. We too busy making a living and enjoying life.
All right,
you know,
Lawrence, I hate to cut you off. I'm just out of time. But come on out. The Parker's Pour is happening. Omni Fort Worth Hotel. The lobby bar is the Whiskey and Rye. I'm going to do a live show from 2 to 5, and then I'm going to do a round of trivia at 5:30, another round of trivia at 7:30. And if you don't know where it's at, ask your phone. Your phone knows. All right, coming up next on the James Show, I found something cool from the 90s. It's Phil Hartman, God rest his soul, and he's talking to Dennis Miller about immigration. And they sort of just muse on what America's going to look like if we don't get a hold on this thing. And it's going to kind of knock your socks off next. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Isn't it interesting when people can predict the future? I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. You're home for Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins. And I love it when they do stuff like this, when they find stuff that's recirculating on social media from days past, and it seems amazing, almost prophetic, how some people make predictions and how accurate they can prove to be. So we're going to go back to the 90s for this one, and it was when Dennis Miller had a TV show, and Phil Hartman was on. Now, Phil Hartman died in 1998, so we know it's at least that time or before. And they get into a discussion about immigration. Now, at the time, you kind of knew Dennis Miller's politics were maybe a little right of center, but he was fairly moderate. And we didn't really know a whole lot about Phil Hartman's politics because he had just gotten out of Saturday Night Live, and then he did news radio. But this was sort of toward his last few days when he did speak up about politics, and might be something you kind of agree with. The amazing part about this, though, they're talking about illegal immigration in the 90s, and they have no idea how right they were.
A parody of what happens if immigration goes unchecked. What are your views on it personally?
On the film, Second Civil War? On immigration? Well, I am an immigrant. I came to this country in 1957 from a terrible hostile regime in Canada. But what's fascinating about this subject, and it's one of the things that's touched upon in the movie The Second Civil War, is that you cannot even discuss this subject without being considered a racist in this country. And the immigration policy in the United States is the most liberal in the world. 800,000 people a year enter the United States legally, 900,000, and maybe another 200,000 or 300,000 illegally. And no other country tolerates that kind of illegal immigration or that kind of mass influx through their borders. But it's only going to heat up because we're not discussing it. Do you know that in the next 5 years, over $1 billion a year in entitlements is going to be given through Social Security to foreigners who have immigrated to this country and not put so much as a dime into the system? Ouch. Yeah, ouch.
It's going to cause a riot, Phil.
Well, that's why I'm here today to talk about the new American Nazi Party. We're not just against gypsies and homosexuals anymore.
Now, he means that tongue-in-cheek because he's not actually a Nazi. He just expects to be called a Nazi for asking some serious, sober, sterile, absolutely non-racist questions around illegal immigration. And so he was warning that, legal immigrants or immigrants, foreigners, could be getting over $1 billion from Social Security alone. Well, we just started measuring last year in Texas how much illegal immigrants were costing us in healthcare costs. And for the first month that we got a full round of data, and this is not with full compliance, this is with doctors voluntarily not asking the questions or instructing their patients to not answer the questions. This is just what they had admitted to. It was $121 million in the first month. In the first year, it was over $1 billion. That's just in Texas. He was talking about nationwide. So how much are they costing us a year? Well, dude, above board, billions. And fraud, billions. So yeah, when you go back and you look in the 90s, he was even saying back then, it's hard to talk about this because you'll just get called racist. And that's so disappointing because it's an intellectual shortcut that allows people to dismiss your argument and not address the real issue. The real issue isn't that I hate brown people. The real issue is that this is costing us a ton of money. Caitlin Bennett went out there and did one of those man on the street bits where you have the microphone and you're in a crowd. And she was asking people their thoughts on a Kamala Harris quote, except she told them it was a Trump quote. And then she got their initial reaction and then told them, sorry, that was a Kamala Harris quote. And for some of them, she had to play back the video of Kamala Harris saying it. And it just shows you people are so trained to look for racism where it doesn't exist. And it's not just annoying or an intellectual shortcut. It causes them to miss the real issue.
These are quotes from Donald Trump.
There are legal methods by which migration can and should occur. But we, as one of our priorities, will discourage illegal migration. If you come to our border, you will be turned back.
To that, I say Donald Trump. Is it something you'd expect from Donald Trump?
Oh, hell yeah. He's stupid. Yeah.
So what does that entail? Are you going to like punish them in terrible ways? Like, I don't know. These aren't Donald Trump quotes. What? These quotes actually came from Kamala Harris. Holy crap. She's good at lying. She knows how to do that.
I'm sorry, Donald Trump.
Read that.
I'm very shocked.
Does that surprise you? I'm really not political, so.
So, yeah, you've been trained to hate Trump. She told them it was Trump. They were expecting to hear something stupid or racist or dumb. These people have been trained. These people do not think for themselves. These people believe what they see on TV. And that's why I talk about what The View said. That's why I talk about sometimes what's on the Oscars on Sunday or the Super Bowl halftime show or all these culture wars where some people are like, I don't care. I don't even know who Bad Bunny is. Well, you might want to pay attention because other people are getting some bad information and canceling out your vote based on that bad information. But if you want to see how bad it gets, you can look at England because they are a little further down the woke lefty rabbit hole than we are. And it has finally come to pass that flying the English flag in England is now considered racist. And I'm not making it up. You'll hear it next on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. It won't be too much longer, and someone will call the American flag racist. Mark it. You heard it here first on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. I am your host, James Parker, and I don't say that lightly or just to be sensational here. Phil Hartman and Dennis Miller were just in the last segment pointing out that any criticism of immigration or illegal immigration or the cost of it or the taxpayer hit is going to be called racist, Nazi, and it's going to continue unabated until the point to where, there's going to be a breaking point financially speaking. However, are we willing to battle this, or are we too scared of being called racist? I played you an example from Caitlin Bennett. Kamala Harris quotes when attributed to Trump were called racist and stupid. People have been programmed to think that. And if you want to see what our society could progress to if we just don't slam the brakes on right now, look no further than our cousins over in England. Now, after the bombing in Iran started, there were a lot of people who took to the streets. And in England, they were against it. Now, the Iranians were for it, but the Free Palestine crowd and some of the other Muslim immigrants that are not native to Britain, not, historically legacy Britons, they're out there waving their Palestinian flags, waving the old Iranian flag, not the cool one with the dragon on it, but the theocracy flag, waving ISIS flags. They were out there. There were some counter-protesters waving an English flag. And the cops of England went and warned against the counter-protester for flying his English flag at a protest, saying it's upsetting.
So this guy is getting told not to fly his flag in a public area when you've got the pro-Hamas flag being flown, we've got the Palestine flag, all the other fascist flags that they've got going, but he's being told to go away with his England flag. In England. I mean, come on, you can't make this up.
So, okay, maybe it's just a one-off. Maybe that's not the mainstream of any thought, any big group or section of the population in England. Oh, no. So right after that, they were talking about it on one of the BBC channels. And one of the guys making the case that it is a racist flag, and probably the most racist flag possible. Of course, it's a black guy. I don't know if you can tell because their accents are weird, like you can't hear in America. But he was backing up the idea. Like, no, not only does that not bother me, of course the English flag is racist. Really?
The English flag isn't just a symbol of racism. It may be the primary symbol of racism in this country because of how it's been adopted and co-opted by the far right. All right, in many ways, it's like the Confederate flag. There's a reason why the far right picked this flag, and it's not.
What do you think
very
that
comfortable
is?
Discussions, because actually, for a lot of people in England, being English is being white, and that's why someone like me would never say I'm English.
Wow. Yes. So not only is it a racist flag, it's the most racist flag in England. Who ended the slave trade? Has no one heard of William Wilberforce before? The guy that got the English Empire to outlaw slavery and then cut off the slave trade, then outlaw slavery, and then be the people who patrolled the seas, stopping slave ships and freeing the slaves and forcing other countries to end their slave trade. No country on earth, not even America, no country on earth is more responsible for the abolition of slavery worldwide than England. No one has freed more slaves worldwide than England. Of all the slaves, the descendants of former slaves, most of you owe your freedom to the country of England, and yet in 2026, you're being told that that is the most racist flag. Not because anything England did, because it's associated with his, political opposition? Now, we have the infancy, we have the nadir of that same thought here in America. I bring you back to a couple of years ago, some guys at Myrtle Beach on spring break, and he can't stand that some of his neighbors are flying the American flag.
I'm here enjoying a nice day at the beach with my kids, and I turn around, I got these flags planted here on the beach by these MAGA. Listen, this is all America. We know you didn't storm the beaches to stake out your territory on the beach. This isn't the moon. I get it. This is America. But I'm sick of my flag being represented by white nationalist trash on a beach. Go yourselves.
Yeah, nice. He really loves the flag, doesn't he? Coming up next, today is the last day to file for school choice here in Texas. We got the new voucher system. It's pathetic. It's a drop in the bucket. It doesn't go nearly far enough, but there are a bunch of twists and turns and rules that you need to be made aware of, and you will hear a nice little 2-minute rundown that WFAA did on their morning show this morning. That's coming up next on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. It's the last day for school choice vouchers in Texas. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. Now, granted, this situation is better than what we had last year with absolutely no school choice or minimal school choice. This is a step in the right direction, but it doesn't go nearly far enough. Now, just to be open here, if I had my druthers, there'd be no public schools, but I would be willing to compromise that if we had 100% school choice where anyone could get a voucher, anyone could qualify for it and choose a private school, I would sign on to that because I know the public schools would fall probably within a year. So with that, this is some good info. Moms, dads, you got kids in school out there, this may help you out a little bit. This may be information that you can use because I got to give it to them. WFAA did a really good job sort of breaking down everything that's going on with this school choice bill. And there's a lot of weird rules in there, so pay attention.
More than 185,000 families have applied, about 80% for public money to pay for private school here in Texas. The other 20% or so for homeschool. As of Friday, just 25,000 of those applications are for special needs students. 19,000 of those are considered low or middle income. They move to the top of the list for the program. Next up, income. 35% of the applications are for the lowest income families. 37% are for middle income families, which is 2 to 5 times the federal poverty level. And 28% are for households making more than 5 times the federal poverty level. The TEFA program was marketed as a school choice program designed to give parents more freedom and options. So far, less than 25% of the applications are for children who attended public school this year. More than 50,000 applications are for pre-K, kindergarten, or first grade. With applications wrapping up, the next hurdle is getting approved. Let's say in a dream world, your office awards 50% of these ESAs or vouchers to those families. What happens if the schools don't take them?
Well, it is up to the schools. Look, this is not a big government program. This is educational freedom. So we're not forcing schools to enroll. We're not forcing parents in any way to enroll or participate.
So that means even if a family is awarded money, the private school of their choice does not have to accept their student. If you're interested, remember, today is the last day to apply for the new Texas Education Freedom Account. Funding notifications will be sent starting in early April. We'll continue to follow the rollout of this new program and share details on how it's working for you.
So cautiously optimistic. My only hope is that it expands greatly in both the size and scope of the project. Because school choice, I like the idea of school choice. I like the idea of choice in most of these socialist experiments, because I know once you remove the coercion, the force of the prepaid government monopoly that most of us are sucked into in public schools, so much else is going to change for the better. When you have kids who are in school and it is time for you to buy a new house, you know what the number one determining factor on your location is going to be? It's not where you work. It's not where your spouse works. It's what school district are you in? If I were to move my kids and Miss Parker to like across the street where I work now, it would... Hi, Miss Parker. We would have to necessarily add in the cost of private schools, because taking the schools from Bug Tussle ISD to the public schools where I would be if I was across the street, that's a significant step down in both achievement and safety and discipline and results and facilities and sports and extracurriculars. It'd be terrible. So if I were to move my family closer, what's the first thing I would have to do? What is the closest place to my work that also what? Has a decent school district? If we had school vouchers, that would be removed. If we had school choice, that would be removed. If we just got rid of public schools, period, that would be removed as well. But I don't think enough people are ready for that, or they're on board for that. You know, I try and say this in ways that for people who don't agree with me, they don't think I sound crazy. So I like to say, like, I don't want to get rid of DART. I'd like to privatize DART. Yeah, that's the ticket. Just want to privatize it. And since it's a non-profitable endeavor, it would necessarily go away. But like, yeah, I don't want to get rid of Social Security. I want to privatize Social Security. And we already have the private version of Social Security, the process by which you put away 13% of your income every month and then live off of it in retirement. It's this crazy thing called a savings account. It's the weirdest thing. It's really complex. You give your money to a bank or a credit union or some other financial institution. They hold on to it and they'll even grow it for you. It's the weirdest thing. Yeah. But that's kind of how I feel about the whole school choice thing. And, I was putting together a segment for this afternoon's show. And I've been trying to work a little overtime so I don't repeat as much as possible. But in that, I was just reminded how much better schooling used to be before we've tried this failed, just completely embarrassing experiment that is public schools. Do you realize how dumb kids are when they get out of public schools now versus how smart they were when they got out of school before public schools existed? And it wasn't just the rich kids. When Common Sense was written, it was read by almost every person in the colonies. Now, there were only a few million back then, and there were a few 100,000 pamphlets that were printed and handed out and sold. But for every guy that had a pamphlet, he took it home, and everyone else in his family read it, and his friends read it, and then he gave it to some guy that he knew from church, and it got passed around. And it's written at a 12th grade level. Do you know how rarely you and I are both exposed to any content that's at a 12th grade level? Donald Trump speaks on about a 7th or 8th grade level. Most of your TV shows are below that. Most of your music is below that. And I didn't say that to demerit or insult Trump. That's kind of a smart thing so the rest of the country can get along and he doesn't talk over their heads or sound like he's stuck up. But for all the kids that are graduating from high school in 2 months, how many of them write as good as Thomas Paine did? And he only had 5 years of schooling. And it was a private school in Thetford, England. And he wasn't a rich person. He wasn't a noble. He was just a regular guy. He got 5 years of school from age 8 to 13. And this is what he cranked out. Have you ever written anything this eloquent in your life?
Government by kings was first introduced into the world by the heathens, from whom the children of Israel copied the custom. It was the most prosperous invention the devil ever set on foot for the promotion of idolatry. The heathens paid divine honors to their deceased kings, and the Christian world hath improved on the plan by doing the same to their living ones. How impious is the title of sacred majesty applied to the worm, who in the midst of his splendor is crumbling into dust.
What the heck? I bet half of our high school seniors can't even read that and understand it. But we go to the Federalist Papers. Here's John Jay writing in Federalist 2, talking about how the Constitutional Convention was a worthy endeavor.
This convention, composed of men who possessed the confidence of the people, and many of whom had become highly distinguished by their patriotism, virtue, and wisdom, in times which tried the minds and hearts of men, undertook the arduous task. In the mild season of peace, with minds unoccupied by other subjects, they passed many months in cool, uninterrupted, and daily consultation, and finally, without having been awed by power or influenced by any passions except love for their country, they presented and recommended to the people the plan produced by their joint and very unanimous councils.
And that was published in newspapers all across the colonies for the ratification of the Constitution, and it was expected to be understood by even the backwoods yokel farmers. We've seriously gotten dumber, and I blame the public schools, and we're crazy to continue funding this madness. All right, that's going to do it for my time. Thank you very much for hanging out with me. Come back. I'll be back to do this from 2 to 5 this afternoon. Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins is up next. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP.